Good afternoon. I'm here today to talk to you about the U.S. Constitution. Our Constitution has been in effect here governing our country for 238 years. I don't know how much you know about our Constitution, but right now, let me share some quick facts with you. Our Constitution is the oldest but shortest governing document in use in the world today. So that tells me that our founding fathers did an excellent job of creating our Constitution. Our Constitution only has 4,400 words. Even if you add the Bill of Rights, it only goes to over 7,000. Most countries have volumes of books, thick, stacked books that make up their governing documents, but not the United States. We kept it short and simple. Our Constitution was created after the Revolutionary War. After our war was fought, we thought, what are we going to do to govern this country? And a document called the Articles of Confederation was put into place. My friend Benjamin Franklin is going to talk to you about that one later. But the Articles of Confederation turned out to not be a very good system for us. Too much fighting and feuding. So some of us, including myself, got together and we started over again. And what we ended up with was the Constitution. Do you know that none of us were even able to write out the final draft of the document? The Constitutional Convention actually paid a gentleman called a scribe to write the Constitution out for us so it was legible and everyone could read it. Another interesting fact is that even though he was a professional, he misspelled Pennsylvania. Can you imagine? I'm not sure we got our money's worth there. The members of the Constitutional Convention all signed our Constitution. The oldest one to sign was Benjamin Franklin, who had another very honorable thing to go along with that. He's going to tell you about it later. The youngest one was only 29. Can you imagine? Such a young person signing such an important document. But it did become the backbone of our nation and still serves us today, although it has been changed many times. Did you know that the very last amendment change to our Constitution wasn't approved until the 1990s? But it had been on the books since before 1800. That's a long time for an amendment to lay around without a vote. But because of our excellent system of government, it remained there until there was finally a vote on it. Our original Constitution now can still be seen. You can go to the National Archives where it is displayed in very, very strong cases that I'm told will withstand a nuclear blast. I sure hope we don't ever have to find out. And now, let's hear from my good friend, Benjamin Franklin.
I am Benjamin Franklin. I was born in Boston in 1706, but I left Boston at the age of 17 for Philadelphia, where I became well known as a printer of a newspaper. I began Poor Richard's Almanac, which is still used today to help farmers identify times in which they need to plant or harvest their crops. I was one of 17 children, and to save money, there was a time in which I even practiced being a vegetarian because meat was very expensive. I used the money I saved to purchase books because I loved to read. I was a fashion icon of my time. I also loved to play chess and even wrote a book on the subject. I was known for my inventions, and some of the things that I have been credited with inventing include bifocal glasses. Your parents or grandparents may have these kinds of glasses where you can see close up with the bottom of the glass and farther away with the top. I also invented the lightning rod. You may have heard of my stories of my experiments with electricity. I invented the Franklin stove. At that point in time, people used wood primarily to heat their homes and to cook. But fireplaces were not very efficient, and they would lose a lot of their heat. I invented the Franklin stove, which began helping people use their wood more efficiently. I also invented a musical instrument known as a glass harmonica. I really loved to swim, and I was a member of the International Swimming Hall of Fame. I even invented a set of fins. But unlike today's swim fins, which go on your feet, my swim fins went on your hands. I charted and named the Gulf Stream current in the Atlantic Ocean. I founded the first public lending library in the colonies and the first volunteer fire department. I helped establish the Pennsylvania Hospital, the first public hospital in America, as well as this institution that is now known as the University of Pennsylvania. I nearly died twice conducting my experiments. Once I was working to try to help cure paralysis in a man, and we were using some electric shock. It didn't go very well, but we survived. Another time, I tried to cook a turkey using electricity. Both endeavors nearly put me in my grave early. I loved languages and could speak 5. English, of course, French, Latin, Italian, and Spanish. My son, William Franklin, and I disagreed on the way the colonies should be operated. He was what they called a loyalist. In other words, he was loyal to the British Crown. And he became the last royal governor of New Jersey. He was imprisoned by the American patriots during the Revolutionary War. He was exchanged and then immigrated to England. He and I never reconciled our differences. At one time, I owned slaves, but I opposed the institution as I got older. I wrote pamphlets arguing for the need to eliminate slavery and became president of the Pennsylvania Abolitionist Society, which worked to get rid of slavery. I proposed the idea of a United States some 20 years before the Revolutionary War was actually fought. In 1754, I tried to find ways to unite the colonies and proposed the Albany Plan of Union. This was not long after the French and Indian War. But it wasn't until the 1770s that others began to share my vision. I was the only person to sign all 3 major documents for the beginning of the United States: the Declaration of Independence, the Treaty of Paris, which ended the Revolutionary War, and the Constitution. I was a diplomat. I served as an American ambassador to France, and I played a key role in securing support from the French for the Patriot cause. My face is on the $100 bill, and I was given the title of First American because of my efforts to unite the colonies and promote colonial unity. I was also known as the only president who was never president. I was the oldest of the founding fathers and the first to die. I died in 1790. Now, I'm going to share the floor with my colleague, Mr. James Madison, who is going to tell you a little about himself.
Good afternoon. As Mr. Franklin stated earlier, my name is James Madison. And for reasons you will understand as I talk to you about my life and times, I am called the father of the United States Constitution. I was actually very young during the Constitutional Convention. I wasn't born until 1751. In fact, and I won't make any apologies for it, I was born into a very wealthy family in Virginia. In fact, my family had already been living in Virginia for over 100 years when I came along. I was born to my parents, James and Eleanor Madison, and grew up living a very privileged life. They had a lot of wealth, a lot of land. I had 11 siblings, and I just lived a pretty carefree existence. We had tutors. We learned at home. And after I finished my studies and ended what you might now call high school, it was time for me to go to college. By that time, though, there were only about 6 of us left as siblings. We lost 6 along the way, but that was a frequent occurrence in my day and time. My parents wanted me to go to college and become a lawyer, which I did, but they wanted me to go to the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, which would have been close to home. No, I was not having that. I wanted to get away from the other brothers and sisters and my parents, so I went all the way to Princeton University, all the way to New Jersey. It was a great time. I studied, I went to class, I learned many things, and eventually graduated as an attorney at law. But during those years, I wasn't really too excited about the thought of going back to Virginia because everything was happening where I was. All the riots and the marches and everything that was going on as we eased our way into what would become known as the American Revolution. During the actual revolution, I did head home, where I was elected to Virginia's was called the House of Burgesses, much like a House of Representatives. I served there and did my part, working for all of the men from Virginia and our united colonies that served in the Continental Army and the many state militias. But following the Revolution, well, it became obvious that the governing document we had founded, the Articles of Confederation, which I might add I was not really a part of, was not going very well. The decision was made that we needed to hold another convention of sorts, and the people who attended were going to try to repair the Articles of Confederation. Well, because I was a fairly well-known young politician in Virginia, I was sent to attend that very convention. It didn't hurt that my good friends, including John Jay, were already writing a lot about the Articles of Confederation, and in fact, we had met many times talking about how to make them better. We had pretty much come to the decision that the Articles of Confederation had served their purpose. It was time for a new governing document. And Unbeknownst to all the other people who were showing up for our Constitutional Convention, we already had the outline for our United States Constitution ready. We just had to wait through all the arguing and voting and yaying and naying until the decision to start over presented itself. We did get that Constitution ratified, voted on, and it became our governing document. Following all of that excitement, I returned to Virginia, and lo and behold, I eventually served 2 terms as President of the United States, following my good friend, Thomas Jefferson. Thomas and I were close friends. In fact, during the Constitutional Convention, we got arrested for riding in a carriage on Sunday. Who knew that was illegal? We had to have somebody come bail us out. Don't think all politicians are boring. We have our stories too. I did serve 2 terms as president, and I have the distinction of being the shortest president to ever serve. I was only 5'4" tall and weighed an enormous 100 pounds when I served as president. A lot of things happened during that time, including the War of 1812, which my wife Dolly became the complete heroine of the War of 1812 because the British came rolling into Washington to burn the White House, and even though I had already told her to leave, that woman stayed and got all the treasures, the paintings, the artworks out of the White House. She became so popular that my political opponent, Mr. Pinckney, who ran against me for president, said that if he had only had to run against James Madison, he might have won the election. But unfortunately, he also had to run against the beloved Dolly Madison also. She was quite a woman. Following our tenure in the White House, we returned to Virginia, and I lived a very peaceful and uneventful life until my death. It was a funny thing. When I passed away, the doctors actually asked me if I wanted them to keep me alive until the 4th of July, because that was when John Adams and my good friend Thomas Jefferson had died, on the 4th of July. I said, no thank you, and I passed away on June the 28th, 1836. I am very proud to have served my country.
I will be your narrator as we present to you the skit, A Republic If You Can Keep It. We begin September 1787 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the Convention Hall.
Well, Mr. Madison, we have finally completed our work. I must admit, I am surprised it did not end in fistfights.
There were moments when I thought it might, but at last we have our Constitution.
A constitution. A curious creation indeed. A blend of compromise and contention. Tell me, do you believe it will hold?
Oh, it must. The Articles left us powerless, unable to raise revenue, settle disputes, or even defend ourselves. Without a stronger union, we would surely fall apart.
True enough, yet I confess I do not entirely approve of this new frame. But then, sir, I doubt I should ever wholly approve of any plan drafted by mortal men.
True enough, but that is why it's designed to be amended. Perfection is not of this earth, but structure, checks, balances, separation of powers. These may well secure liberty.
The faith of youth. You trust in parchment. I trust in human nature. and in its faults. The people are ambitious, selfish, sometimes foolish.
Yes.
But those very flaws may keep government honest if power is divided.
But that is why we built it so. Ambition must counter ambition. The president checked by Congress, Congress checked by the courts, the states balanced by the national government. A system of restraint, like weights on a scale.
Let us pray the scale does not tip too far.
After an exhausting day, Franklin and Madison meet again that evening.
There will be fierce opposition. Many will say that this Constitution grants too much power to the central government. Others will say it grants too little.
And both will be right. But that is the nature of compromise. If no man is fully satisfied, then the plan is probably good.
Still, some states may refuse to ratify. They fear the loss of their sovereignty.
And rightly so. Power is a hungry beast,
Agreed.
always grasping for more. But a union of weak states will not survive. We must persuade them that strength and liberty can live together.
And that is exactly why we must have a Bill of Rights. The people demand their liberties. Security in writing, speech, press, religion, trial by jury. Without those promises, suspicion will poison every argument.
A wise addition, for though parchment alone cannot preserve liberty, parchment may at least remind men of their duty to guard it.
A republic cannot endure without vigilance. Power must be watched, always.
You speak as though you expect the people to be ever watchful. I have lived too long to put faith in the masses. They are quick to forget. Today they cry for liberty. Tomorrow they may cry for order, even at the cost of freedom.
Then the task of us, leaders, is to shape the institutions. So even when men fail, the structure holds. That is the best we can hope for.
Perhaps you are right. Perhaps this Constitution will stand. Not because men are wise, but because men are flawed. And the flaws of one may restrain the flaws of another.
We begin again the next morning outside the State House. Imagine, if you will, being one of the townsfolk, waiting to hear the news, very curious.
The people are eager. They ask already, "What government have you given us?"
A republic, if you can keep it.
Oh, that is the question, isn't it? Whether future generations will keep it.
Yes, constitutions do not keep themselves. They must be guarded by courage, by wisdom, by sacrifice.
And by knowledge. An ignorant people cannot remain free. Education must be the first duty of a republic.
Agreed. For a nation of sheep will soon have wolves for rulers.
Then we must trust that posterity will cherish what we've built.
Trust, yes, but never blindly. Even the strongest ship needs a crew awake at the wheel. If they fall asleep, the rocks await.
Then let us pray most sincerely that they stay awake.
Pray, yes, but also prepare. For I fear the keeping of this republic will prove harder than its founding.
And so the Constitution was born. Franklin, weary but wise, returned home to Philadelphia. Madison, tireless in defense of the new framework, would one day serve as president. But Franklin's warning has outlived them both. Republic, if you can keep it. More than parchment or politics, the keeping of the republic rests in the hands of the people. Each generation must decide, will they guard liberty or let it slip away?